Hello and welcome to episode 278. As I was just reminded, I'm Jason.
I'm Bill, and I'd like to start off the show today with a tribute to Bill Russell. Definitely one of the greatest NBA players ever. Arguably, you could argue the greatest player ever, based upon his championship resume as a player and a coach. But for my days at the NBA, I remember days when he would be in the office, and he and Bob Lanier were really close, and they would walk around and they'd be cackling and smiling all day and making people laugh, and they were just great ambassadors for the game.
11
So,
rings.
big loss.
11 rings.
11 rings.
For all the talk about Jordan's 6 and LeBron's 5, 11.
It's the most.
And he's been brought up recently, too, in the J.J. Redick, Jerry West beef, right? With the, J.J. talking. It brought up that whole comparing eras thing, which is always just difficult to do.
It's impossible to do, I think.
Yeah. Because obviously, if you took an athlete from today and put him in a time machine, yes, the athlete from today would dominate. But if you took Eddie House, that's the people like bring up for some reason. If he was born back then, he might not have been very good because he would have had the same diet regimen, the same sleep patterns, all
The same equipment growing up, the same shoes. Yeah, lots of
the
things.
same
The
access.
same
Yeah.
training, the same lack of weight facilities. Yeah, it'd be totally different.
So it's impossible. It's just it's like one of those they're like, well, of course Russell won 11 rings, and it's like, yeah, he won 11 rings against his peers. He won 11 rings. That's indisputable.
It's an interesting argument. Like if you took Tom Brady back and threw him in a time machine,
Yeah.
and he didn't have his trainer or all the stuff that he does, how good would he have been?
It's hard to you can't say. That's the
You
thing.
can't say. You have no idea. He might have pioneered the avocado ice cream 50 years ago. Who knows?
You never know. Yeah.
Right? You don't know. And that's the fun of it. I mean, you can always debate it. You can always argue it.
And it's
But
people. Yeah, and they like to point out
compare
like,
it is just too hard.
yeah, and if Larry Bird or Isaiah Thomas or one of those guys played today, they would shoot threes and they would shoot them really well. It just
Yeah.
wasn't a thing people shot back then. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But if you don't think Larry Bird would have been an awesome 3-point shooter, you were not paying attention.
No. And if Larry Bird knew he could make more money shooting threes, he'd have been shooting threes.
Yeah. But the game was played different. They weren't coached to do it that way, so it's one of those silly,
Yeah.
Now, Jerry West did have an awesome comeback, which is, why is somebody that averaged 12 points a game in any era talking to me? Which is pretty funny.
Yeah. Jerry West is a different dude, man.
Yeah. And, J.J. Redick played for the Magic. He obviously had a nice career at Duke. Very good player. Always seemed very well liked. And,
Yeah. Look how many years he stayed in the NBA.
I do, the rare times that I have on First Take, like, I do like the way he goes at Stephen A., which is probably why he won't be on that show very often. Because he owns Stephen A.'s lunch, and Stephen A. doesn't like when people are better than him and gets them fired.
Yeah.
Just ask Max
That's
Kellerman.
probably true.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then they won't want Stephen A. on General Hospital anymore.
No. But he's still a parody on SNL, so he reached that level. So
Oh yeah, he's a Lamar Ball parody too. I mean
Yeah.
that's Stephen A. is just a noise, but he gets ridiculous money. He gets more money than Charles Barkley,
I know.
and I just can't understand that. But let's talk about Sir Charles.
Okay.
So interesting week. He flirted with LIV, but we don't know that they were going to offer him a commentator job anyhow.
No.
I mean, he assumed they were going to offer him one, and I don't know if the offer got made before he withdrew or it never got made or whatever, right?
They don't have a
So we
TV
don't
deal,
know.
right?
We know he played in the Pro-Am,
Yeah.
and we know that he was, whether or not an offer was made, we don't know that, but we know he was hoping an offer was going to be made and he was going to consider it. And then, I'm glad it worked out where he didn't go. But as you and I were talking offline, and you go ahead and elaborate on this, he definitely damaged his image.
Yeah, well, I mean, for starters, LIV does not even have a TV deal yet to have TV commentators on, right?
Right.
I mean, I know a lot of people probably want it and would throw money at it, but it's also the politicalness of do you want to be associated with the LIV, whether what network you are and sponsors and everything else. But yeah, he went on Dan Patrick, and in a very non-Charles, I guess both really Charles Barkley and non-Charles Barkley, it felt like he sort of stuck his foot in his mouth which he's been prone to do, but usually not in this sort of a way, you know?
This is kind of an angry way.
It was an angry way. He was like, you can't blame other people for going to get their money. It doesn't really matter. This isn't about what other countries do to their people. And he sort of brought up LeBron and China and like getting your money's getting your money. And then it's probably never been a good thing in the history of the United States or the world. But if you're somebody that makes a little over $20 million a year, when you make it seem like that's not good,
yeah,
I don't think that endears you to the people that basically keep you on TV and pay your salary in a weird, in an opposite sort of way.
Yeah, there's no love for the one percenters.
No. And when you want to be...
Charles is way up there in the one percenters.
Yeah, even if he's in the 3%ers and he wants to join the 1%ers, like, in the midst of inflation and all this financial crisis, like, the money argument when you're already making $20 million a year and have had, 40 years in the industry and who knows what else you have is probably not going to endear you to anybody.
No. Not at all. But I definitely don't think he came across well. I think he came across a little bit ignorant for not understanding the implications.
Yeah.
Especially when he's there and those protests are going on, and if he's viewed as an everyman, and so if he wasn't sympathetic with the people with the protesting, that again puts him in bad light.
Yeah. And again, like you said, the reason he gets the endorsements and people love him is he's just good old goofy Charles Barkley with his bad golf swing and his funny takes and you're terrible. I mean, that's,
Well, hopefully Shaq and Kenny will make this a point and tease him a little bit in the fall when they're back, and they'll rehabilitate him a little bit that way.
Exactly. I mean, Shaq showed you how you do it. You buy the General and you become Papa John and you make all your money that way,
Yeah. I mean, Shaq is a brilliant businessman. He and Magic Johnson are probably the two best. LeBron would be close. Jordan never really ran a business, but he gets paid for endorsing and in his brand Jordan stuff. I mean, but he's not in the same league as Shaq as a businessman.
No.
Shaq understands who he is and what his value is, and he's true to it.
And Shaq has done enough, with the stuff with the cops and the kids and the Thanksgiving turkeys. Like, Shaq has become, seems like a pretty genuine man of the people on top of being a rich man.
He absolutely is. From my experiences with him in the NBA, I would take him over anybody. He was genuinely a good human being.
And growing up watching commercials for the General, which I thought was some sort of car insurance scam, he's made me realize that is a real legitimate car insurance business.
And he brought back Papa John.
Now, I can't give him credit for that because it's terrible pizza, but...
It is terrible pizza, but he brought back the business.
Exactly. And again, I know enough people that that's their go-to pizza, and clearly they're doing well, so good for you, Shaq.
God, that's a sad thought.
It's a whole other discussion.
If that's your go-to pizza, that's a sad thought.
Yeah. Although I was thinking the other day, because I saw people were talking about how much they love DiGiorno, which I think is terrible pizza for frozen pizza, even for frozen pizza. But if your go-to is Papa John's and Domino's and Pizza Hut, you probably do like DiGiorno.
Well, there was one frozen pizza. I know we're going off topic a little bit, but anyhow, there was one frozen pizza that I've tried that I thought was decent. And that's the Mad Sicilian.
Yeah, that one's not bad.
That's not bad, but there's just too many opportunities to get a real pizza.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what to say.
Neither do I.
Well, I also want to shout out to the Three Lions, the English women's team that won the UEFA Cup, beating Germany. Germany's first loss in a finals. And I really liked that English team. I thought it was a great story, so I was real happy for them. Now, I'm not going to show my ignorance by talking about it anymore. I'm just going to say that I appreciated them. I loved the story, and I'm happy they won.
Okay, so as a non-soccer person in a non-soccer podcast that we are, you found that story, you were interested in that story, so you followed through. But
yes.
Do you want to keep reading that book, or are you going to put that book down for the most part?
For me, the book's over.
The book's over, okay.
I finished the book.
You finished the book.
Now, if they go on and play in the World Cup or the Olympics, I'll watch the book again.
Okay.
To see how they do. But I don't need, if they were playing next week in something else, or if all these women play in different leagues and everything, I'm not interested. But I had what I wanted.
Okay. That's what I assume. Because, again, it's, when you get that great story hook, Were you there for the story, and then did you get sold, or were you just like, it was fine, it was fun while it lasted? But
no, I got sold like 3-4 weeks ago and stayed with it. So it was like a short story or a novella. It wasn't a novel.
Okay.
It wasn't a full book for me.
I see. Okay.
Football time.
Yeah, we had the Kyler Murray controversy, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I got when you're going to put something in a contract like that, you know that when somebody finds that contract, that's going to stir up a hornet's nest.
Yes.
And you know that Kyler Murray agreed to it, but all of a sudden he had to say, hey, I study hard, I do all this, I do all that, because otherwise he looks like an idiot.
Well, he's done a little bit of himself.
Here's what I will say.
Yeah.
Speaking about looking like an idiot, why would you do the press conference wearing a shirt that said easy money? If this is your point, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was moronic. I mean, somebody should have stopped him from walking out there in that shirt.
Well, you saw the interview where he literally said a year ago he doesn't need to watch as much film because he's just physically gifted and understands the game a little bit better. He can memorize every play as it happens, and he can replay it in his mind, which is why he doesn't have to watch as much film as everybody else.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's not true.
No, and you look at the way the team has collapsed, and he's collapsed personally down the stretch each of his first 3 seasons. And sometimes you wonder, like, is he not adjusting to, as people are adjusting to him throughout the season, is he not studying enough tape? But again, like you said, you put it in there. I don't understand the back. If you're dumb enough to put it in there because you believe it's something important, if I'm the Cardinals, I'm not taking it out.
No. And
I'm sticking with it.
Immediately brought up that Tom Brady does 40 to 50 hours of film work a week.
Yeah.
And so what good would 4 do you?
That's what most people are like. They're like, 4? They're like, that's not even an hour a day.
Yeah, that was his extra independent study. That was like another course besides, I guess, what he got.
Yeah.
But he did not come across well. And neither did the Cardinals organization, which, to be consistently true, rarely does.
That's very true, yeah. Outside of when they had Kurt Warner and we watched them lose the Super Bowl to the Steelers in an incredible game.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm not... who knows where that team's going to go? I mean, they get some talent. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if I'm going to... I just don't know if I'm going to put my fate in a 5'10" quarterback, knowing how gifted he is as an athlete.
Right. On top of which, like I said, I mean, when you watch the, Easy Money and some of the other stuff, like, it's just not a great look. It's not what you want in your leadership quarterback.
No.
And everything else in the NFL has been, helmets and no pads, training camp buzz.
And alternative helmets.
And some really, I like the Bengals all white helmet. That's a good look.
I've always liked the Cowboys white helmet with the blue star. I've always liked that one. The Texans red helmet, I don't know. Just didn't move me one way or the other.
No, but they're also the Texans, and they just, Like I said, I really like the Bengals all white. I think that looks really good. Like the white Bengal tiger.
Yeah.
It's a sharp look. You go monochromatic from time to time. I like that. The Commanders is, it's a new helmet, so all of it's new.
Yeah. So, you've been raving about George Pickens. So, give me your latest impressions on George Pickens.
I think he's going to be he's already starting in the first 3 wide receivers. He's already the 3rd receiver on the depth chart, and he's playing in the top 2 right now with Deontay Johnson sitting out. And I mean, the big knock on Pickens was, he missed, a year and a half with the ACL injury, and that he was a little bit fiery and he gets in fights on the field. But those are all things the Steelers receivers kind of need, I think.
Yeah.
He's 6'3", 205 pounds. He runs a 4.4 40, and he's got great hands and a mean attitude
and a big catch zone.
And he seems to, he's showing out. Like I said, part of my justification of the Pickens pick was pretending he was the 2nd rounder and Pickens was the 1st. And
go ahead, say it.
Yeah, Kenny Pickens has not looked great, I guess, so far in 7 days of preseason no pad football.
Nope. Sound like TJ Watt's been having a great camp, though.
It does. That's the thing. To be fair to all 3 of these guys, Rudolph, Trubisky, and Pickett is that, the Steelers do have one of the best defenses in football. And a defense you could argue maybe got a little bit better this year. And, they're going against that defense. I mean, steel sharpens steel, whatever you want to say. But, I mean, I assume part of the difficulty is you're going against one of the best defenses. But
who doesn't hold back in training camp?
Who does not hold back in training camp per Mike Tomlin's orders. So, I think that's part of it. But again, my whole thing with Pickett is he'll be 24 to start the season, which makes him, I think, a year younger than Mason Rudolph and 2 years younger than Trubisky. So you kind of want him to come in and just sort of take this team, if he's the first round, Burrow was a starter his first year. Even without injury, like if I got a 24-year-old, and again, they say that typically if you're drafted and you're 24 or 25 at any position in the NFL, you usually do not work out for whatever reason. But the stats show that those guys don't work out.
Well, it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Switching gears, I've been watching the trading deadline. I've not seen Soto move yet, and we're down to less than 2 days. I think it's Tuesday at 5 o'clock is the deadline.
Because he is that weird,
it's earlier than that on Tuesday. It's Tuesday, I know that.
He's the double-edged sword where you have to give up a lot to get him and then pay him more than anybody's ever been paid to play the game of baseball. So
pretty much. And that narrows it down. But the Padres supposedly thought they had a deal giving up 4 prospects to get him.
Yeah.
And I think they came back and wanted a 5th prospect. And that probably killed that deal.
For now.
I mean, we'll see where he goes. And in the Ohtani trade rumors, I realize the Angels are bad. I realize they're not going to go anywhere. I realize that if they don't win, they've probably got a chance of him wanting to go somewhere else and play where he's going to win. I understand all those things. But if you trade this guy, that's the Red Sox trading Babe Ruth. That's death of a franchise. There's no way you could come back from trading the best. And I love Mike Trout, but Ohtani's the most unique, probably the best player in that franchise history.
Yeah. And again, he's got international appeal. He's bringing in other markets that don't usually pay attention to the Los Angeles, that sort of baseball.
Yeah.
So. And then I guess we can transition to the other trades in the NBA, right?
We sure can. We can talk about the Sixers being investigated for tampering.
Which they did. So.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
There's no doubt. It's one of those weird tampering where it's like, I know it is tampering, but.
The conversation was, hey, listen, if you give back some of your money this year, we'll sign you a 2-year contract. That conversation took place.
Yeah.
There's no way you say, I'm going to give back so many, $10 or $15 million because I'm a good guy. That didn't happen. There's no way.
No. And again, I think part of him getting from Brooklyn to Philadelphia, I think there was tampering on that side too.
Yeah.
I think these things happen. And then his teammates or former teammates, I don't think anyone's touching Kyrie Irving with a 10-foot pole because it's been too many years.
What you're going to get.
Yeah. And then I understand what the Celtics are thinking, but as people have pointed out, Kevin Durant is going to be 34 to start this season. He'll turn 35 in the middle of the season. He's played a lot of basketball. He's only played 50 games once in the last 4 seasons. So, do you want to give up Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Time Lord, and picks for a team that, you went to the finals last year? You added a couple of pieces in Gallinari and Brogdon to help add some depth. Do you want to give up all those pieces to get Kevin Durant?
Good question. I don't think I do.
Because you're not getting Kevin Durant from 4 years ago. You're getting the last couple years of Kevin Durant where he missed an entire season. I know when he played healthy last year, he was a legitimate MVP candidate, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. But given his, off-the-field quirks or off-the-court quirks, and then his health, I don't know if that's a trade I'm going to make. And in the process...
I agree.
It sounds like
I wouldn't make that trade.
And it sounds like you may have pissed off Jaylen Brown in the process already.
Well, yeah, you did, because you said you're not the guy we think we can go to the finals with.
Yeah.
You didn't say that, but you said that.
You said that, yeah.
And I know you can't do that. I mean, players are too sensitive. I mean, it's sensitive, your image, and your earning power and everything's all out there, and all of a sudden you question it. It's not good.
And again, you just lost to an all-time great Steph Curry Warriors team, you know, in the finals.
Yeah.
You added depth. You're coming back, and I know Giannis and hopefully the Bucks are healthy again. The Sixers look like they might be better, but I mean, you're already the contender, and you beat Kevin Durant. You swept him in the first round this year. And this is also the second time that 2 years ago they brought up Jaylen Brown in a bunch of trade conversations.
Yeah.
So this is the second time you've been like, well, you're not our, Tatum's our guy. We like you, but if we can do better, we're getting better. Which you can't. It's one of those catch-22s. Like you can't blame them, but at the same time, like,
yeah, you can't blame the guy for being offended and wanting to go.
No.
Well, I've had a couple good entertainment moments this weekend.
All right, let's hear 'em.
I went and saw Billy Crystal in the Broadway show Mr. Saturday Night, and he was incredible. It's the second I saw him in 700 Sundays before on Broadway, which was an autobiographical thing about him growing up and sharing things with his father. That was a great show. This was a good show, but his performance was great.
Okay.
Very, very fun guy to watch. And, whenever I go to something like that, I always like the supporting cast.
Yeah.
Because they're like playing 2 or 3 different roles. And I just think that's amazing whenever I see that somebody can switch from this character, even though they're just cameo shot characters. The fact that you're doing 2 or 3 different characters is still pretty cool. It says a lot about your talent.
Oh, definitely.
So that was great. And then last night we went and saw Jackson Browne at the Beacon Theater in New York. And it was his 4th show in 4 nights at the Beacon. And now he's off for a month. So it was kind of like he knew this was his last night for a month. And he left it all out there. And it was kind of funny because people were screaming out requests from the audience. And he goes, I know I'm in New York. He goes, I love pushy people. And he kind of made a grin. But he said, okay, we'll move off we'll move off the playlist. And I'll play some of those songs. And so we'll just add a couple more songs. And then a little while later, he goes, you know what? We're just going to play through. We're not going to take a break tonight. And he played from 8 until 10:45.
Wow.
No break. Yeah. 2 encores. I mean, he was phenomenal. And I've seen a lot of performers now in their 60s and 70s. He's by far the closest to what he was when he was in his 20s. I mean, he sounded tremendous. And he had a great band with him, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great place to see a concert as well.
Okay.
So those are my 2 entertainment moments. And I read a book called The Church of Baseball, which is about the making of Bull Durham. And as I told you offline, I can't imagine anything harder than being a writer and trying to get your movie made and getting criticized and get second guessed at every turn of the path. So it was a quick read. It was a fun read. It's always fun to see who other people wanted in those roles. And you think, how could they, like Anthony Michael Hall instead of Kevin Costner? I'm sorry. That just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
I just don't see that one at all.
He did play a football player, though, in Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, but I can't see him in this. I mean,
No.
Kevin Costner was perfect in that role. Do you have any entertainment or do you have any food?
I don't think. Do I have any? I don't think I have anything. I've been working some crazy hours, and I talked about Under the Banner of Heaven last week, right? Didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, that's.
Well, I've got 2 food then. I've got Ted's Montana Grill, which is a chain, but they had one in New York, and it's Ted Turner's Ranch in Montana that brings in all the buffalo and beef, and it's tremendous. And if you like a great burger, I mean, my wife Sharon ordered a chili cheeseburger, and she rarely orders a burger. So that should tell you that it's a great burger. And then I had a cheeseburger, and it was amazing. So that was a great night. And then yesterday we went to a place called Norma, which is a Sicilian restaurant on Third Avenue in New York. And the service was great. The menu was great. The food was phenomenal. Great place to go. We really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, I do have I have two other entertainment moments. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Go ahead.
The first is Well, Square Enix, the video game company, is doing this 2.5D art style, which is it's a beautiful pixel art style. If you just have to Google it, it's probably the easiest. I can't really describe it. But they released a game called Live Alive, which is a JRPG that came out, I think, late 80s, early 90s, and they released it in this new art style. And it's the turn-based JRPG like the old school games. But what's cool about Live Alive is it's 7 vignettes, and there's one as a cave person, and nobody speaks in that one. It's just gestures. There's an Old West, there's an Imperial China, there's a Japan, and they're all these like little 2 to 3 hour vignette RPGs you're playing.
Oh,
And eventually they do all tie in together, but like they keep changing it up. Like I played the Distant Future one, and you're basically just like a little AI bot, but it's essentially the plot of Alien. You're kind of playing in a weird way with some other like twisted things involved, but it's a really, really beautifully well done game. And then my other entertainment moment is SummerSlam, WWE. As people may or may not have heard, Vince McMahon, who was pretty much a giant scumbag his entire life, finally got caught, so he had to resign.
Yep.
And Triple H, who was running NXT for a long time and making that actually a very watchable show, was taken over. And you could just see right away that, because Triple H, a lot of the women after Triple H was fired from NXT left because Vince McMahon immediately wanted to have it be a very scantily clad, that's the kind of women he looked for.
Right.
And Triple H right away brought up 3 women that do not fit that role, but are all really entertaining and good wrestlers. And then, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns sort of tore the house down. And Logan Paul, who, is a very controversial figure, is now a WWE superstar, and he really balled out. He played really well. So, if you're into wrestling, it was a really good show.
That's, it probably is going to be good for the sport, or good for the sport entertainment product, that you've got wrestlers now involved in running it.
Yes.
I think that speaks well of it. These guys probably, knew things that needed to get done, and they're going to make them done. And I think it's going to be really good for the performers and the fans.
It sounds
I
like
think that would be a great thing.
It also seems like Vince McMahon, whether, he both gets a lot of credit, and at the same time he becomes one of those guys where it's like, he does get credit, but his dad gave him a wrestling company. It was already the biggest wrestling company in the world, and he didn't run it off the tracks. And he was fortunate that guys like Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, The Rock, and Cena wanted to be professional wrestlers and sort of came through and helped build his brand. But sometimes when somebody is sort of, the captain of the wheel, like I don't think Roger Goodell makes the NFL any better. I think 1,000 people could step in his shoes and do the exact same job that he does. And I think with Vince McMahon, I think he gets a lot of credit where he was sort of the only business in town for a long time, and, he was in charge.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, those guys get a lot of credit, and it's like, yeah, okay. I'm not sure how much was him and how much was just people have always enjoyed professional wrestling going back to way before the McMahons owned any company. And he happened to be the one that his dad gave him the company. So,
yeah, we'll see how it all works out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody, we're getting closer and closer to that first NFL exhibition game.
Yes, very excited. So, write us in with any questions or comments you guys have. We always appreciate those. And thanks everybody that supports us. And we'll see you next week.
Take care.